All right, guys, so I've been working on the four-door 55. I worked on it yesterday, and I worked on it, I started working on it today. I have yet to get a good start this morning, but I'm getting ready to. Anyway, so I'll run you through what I'm going to do on this. But first, I need to say, you know, for you guys that's been following my channel, you know the issue with the hardtop 55 project. I've got to pull the engine out because it's got a rattle in the bottom end. And I've just decided if I'm going to have to do an engine again, I'm going to go ahead and build the 400. So it's going to cost a lot of money to do that engine. So I'm going to have to save up. So what I've decided to do, since I am really irritated over that car, I don't even want to look at that car. I've decided just to put a little bit of love to this car. There's just some stuff I want to do that it won't cost me any money. I don't have to spend any money right now on it. It's just stuff I can do for free, and it's fabrication. So I'll get you started. This is pretty much what I've got going so far. I've started building my own side engine mount set here. Now, if you don't know, originally these cars, when they came with a small block Chevy, they had brackets that bolted on the front of the engine down here. It's kind of like an L bracket that come out, and then it had a stem with some round cushions on it, and that's where the engine mounted. So a few years go by, and GM figured out that when an engine mount failed on these with a mechanical linkage for the carburetor, the throttle would come open on them. So they ended up going to a side mount system because it's safer. But anyway, it's the cars that I have built in the past, most of them I have converted to side mount and a cross member in the back. So that is where I'm at. So fun fact, some of you may not know, 1955 Chevrolets was the first production small block Chevy V8. It was a 265 cubic inch small block Chevy. And anyway, they mounted up front here, and these cars, you could get a straight 6-cylinder, or you could get the small block Chevy V8. So one of the cool things about it, because you could get the V8 in the 210s and Bel Airs. It wasn't just Bel Airs that had V8. You can get them either way. This car was a 6-cylinder. But if you were driving down the road back then, when these cars were on the road, you could tell it was a V8 by the emblems under the taillights right here. This is the under taillight V8 emblem. It's got a little bow tie with a V. I do have a set of those that I will be putting on this car because it was a 6-cylinder and it didn't have anything back here. So I always thought that was really neat. So I am going to put those on there. Now I'm going to be putting a 305 in this because I have one here. It was free. It was a good used running engine. So I'm just going to reseal the whole engine with all new rear main seal, head gaskets, you know, everything, front seal, and clean it up and paint it. Be like a Krylon rebuild, I guess you'd call it. But that's what I'm going to use in the car because it's free. I don't have to spend any money. So anyway, I started building these side mounts. I did buy a set from eBay, side mount kit, and they were like 35 bucks with free shipping, and I thought, wow, that's a hell of a price. Well, they were crap because whoever built them didn't know how to read a tape measure. They came in just a plain box, didn't even have any instructions in them. But anyway, you're supposed to remove 2 rivets per side because these frames are riveted. You remove 2 rivets on the back side of the center back there on each side, and they send you nuts and bolts and you bolt them on. Well, once you put them in there, there's not really a lot of movement you can put into it, you know. But for whatever reason, it was a 1/4 inch longer on the passenger side, so when I went to set the engine in, it had the engine cocked sideways like this. But worse than that, they had the part that the bolt goes through, that was messed up as well, so it had the engine and trans aim in that direction. So it was just jacked, man. I ended up trying to cut the mounting piece off and reset the engine where I needed it, but I still needed to grind it down more to get that 1/4 inch out. So I just ended up throwing them away and decided to build my own. They were 3/4 of an inch forward to clear the HEI distributor because an HEI distributor is a bigger housing. But when I decided to build them myself, I kind of cheated it back just a little bit, so it's not quite 3/4 of an inch forward. I put a HEI distributor in there, and I put a distributor cap on it, and I put the rear 2 plug wires on there, and I got just enough room to move it freely where it's not going to bind up into it. So kind of basically just building my own. Now I started out with some strap, pretty heavy gauge stuff, and I built the top and I built the bottom, and nothing's fully welded yet. But I'm going to end up cutting out a plate, a sheet of plate I have here, and I'm going to plate in the front and the back, and everything will be fully welded so they'll be nice and stout. Now I did lop off the original trans mounts back there. They're pretty much impossible to get them off clean without having the body off, but I've started building the transmission crossmember, which is right here. This is just stuff that I have laying around. This is some, pretty thick square tubing. I took another piece of square tubing that was about the same thickness, and I've cut out me a little mount there and drilled a hole in it for the transmission mount to bolt to. And then I'm going to attach it to the frame with some angle iron for mounting pads. I'm going to notch this out kind of over and over the top and down a little bit and back, and then that way when I remove that piece, I'll lay a piece of strap in there that's long, and it'll be even, it'll be flush with it. And then I'll drill a hole on each side in the strap, and then I'll drill the 2 holes in these, and that way the transmission crossmember will be removable. So I'll have 4 mounting bolts on it, so it'll be 2 per side. Now I will have to probably notch this out for exhaust, but this will get my basic thing set up in there. I would love to make this drop and over. I just don't have any more of this to make more of it, so it's not going to work that way. So what I'm going to do is I've got some steel pipe in the back, some round pipe, and I'll basically go in here and notch this out, and I'll weld the round pipe in there wherever the exhaust is going to end up needing to go. I am just doing a single exhaust system on this car because it's a 305. It's not a race car. It's going to be a cruiser, and it'll be just fine. I have a brand new MagnaFlow turbo muffler still in the box, just one, and I have lots of extra bends and 45s. I've got 90s, and I've got a long straight piece of new exhaust pipe, so I'm just going to do a single exhaust all the way back. It'll be just fine. I don't really care about having dual exhaust anyway. My truck, it's a 305 with single exhaust, and I don't have an issue with it. I kind of want the car quiet, but that MagnaFlow muffler is probably not going to be quiet, but it's going to be one of them deals where it is what it is when it gets together, and that's how it will stay. But anyway, so I'm pretty happy, man. A little bit of progress. When you fab up motor mounts, it's pretty time consuming because you got to get everything just right. I spent way more time just trying to get the engine and trans set in there than I did anything else. But I did build the motor mounts on this hardtop. I usually just buy them and install them, but these, you probably can't see them. I don't have lights on in here, but these are all hand built as well. But now those are set 3/4 of an inch forward, and I have plenty of clearance behind my HEI. That's why I decided on this one I can actually move it back a little bit. It doesn't need to be quite out that far. But anyway, I've got them all. I had the engine and trans all set up in here with concrete blocks and blocks of wood and bricks and pieces of strap steel scraps just for spacers, shims. And I got it all set where it needs to be. If you're going to do this, if you're going to put a cross member in your car and side engine mounts and stuff, you need to know when you go to put it in there, you don't really need an angle finder like this. You don't really need one of these. If you don't have one, you don't really need it. It is better, but if all you have is a bubble level, you'll be just fine. Set your bubble level across that carburetor mounting flange and just make sure it's dead in the middle. But you got to have your frame level. So make sure, like I've got mine blocked up and shimmed up in the back because this thing's squatted in the rear pretty bad. But anyway, make sure your frame is level front to back. I did it with a bubble level on the bottom of the frame rails on both sides and checked it. So then you go put your motor and trans in, but you want that carb pad flat. And if that is zeroed out, once your frame's level, your transmission tail shaft is automatically 3 degrees down. So it's exactly the way it needs to be. Because in case you don't know, see how that intake is wider at the back? That's your 3 degrees. So make sure your carb pad is level. So I have clearance off the oil pan. I mean, it's just going to end up, I pretty much used my car for my measurements I needed to set it up in there. But anyway, I'm happy with it. I just need to, get the transmission crossmember stuff set up. But I've kind of been thinking about it. I'm not 100% if I want to do it. I'm not, super enthused about doing it right now because it's going to be a big task if I do it. I kind of thought about going ahead and lifting the body up off the frame and, putting it on concrete blocks and 4x4 posts, which I've done body swaps here a lot, right here in this very spot. I basically use concrete blocks stacked up with a big 4x4 post at the front of the rocker here and at the rear of the rocker there. And then I'll take the wheels off of the frame, and I'll use a wheel dolly, and I'll put it under the center of the frame cradle right there, and I'll put the other one on the center section of the rear end. That way it gets the frame down low and you can take it straight out backwards. So, the body doesn't have to be super high at that point. But at that point, if I took the body off, because there's really the brake line, the steering box, and the emergency brake cable, that's pretty much all that's keeping me from doing it. So I might go ahead, because there's no wiring in the car anymore. There's nothing really, so it'd be pretty much a simple task. But that would allow me to be able to climb up in there, right onto it to finish out all my fabrication, because I'd really like to remove them factory trans mounts, and the only way to do it is to get the body off of it. But I don't plan on blasting the frame because I don't have the money to, so I think I'm just going to use knotted cut brushes and clean it up the best I can. And then some of the harder to reach areas, I obviously won't be able to get a cut brush up in here and up in these frame edges and stuff. So I'll use my portable sandblaster. And at that point, I'm just going to paint it. I'm not going to spend any money on paint. I've already got some old paint here. I bought some Summit Racing Hot Rod Satin Black. I bought 2 quarts of it, and I bought the activators and everything. And I actually mixed up a little bit to spray on something. It's been a few years ago, and it was blotchy looking. It just didn't flow out nice, and I wasn't happy with it, so I never used it. So as far as a frame, it'll be just fine, because this car, I'm not doing the extent of the quality that I did on the hardtop. This car is going to be a driver. I'm not going to make it crappy. I'm just not going to make it as nice as I did that one. But this car, I just kind of like to have the frame clean, and that way when the hood is open, at least it looks nice down here. So, I might spend time, detailing a lot of the under hood stuff, like the steering box and all that with paint and everything. But, as far as underneath the car, the frame rails and stuff, if they got dents and scrapes and crap in them, I don't really care. It's just going to be not rusty, we'll say. But anyway, guys, that's pretty much what I've done. The other thing I did yesterday was fabricated my throttle linkage. This car was a 6-cylinder car, so this linkage on a 6-cylinder, this linkage goes down. The V8s go up. So what I did was I cut it down here, and I basically had turned this piece around, if I remember right, but I just basically used the same thickness of metal, and I put it like a 2-inch long piece in here, and I've ground it and everything, and you can't even tell I did anything. But now it's a V8 linkage. But anyway, it's just going to end up being kind of nice. I love fabricating stuff. I absolutely love it. I'm going to fabricate my own shift linkage to go to the shifter on the transmission to up here to the column when it goes in. If you've ever bought that kit, it's really basic. So I'm just going to go down here to Lowe's and buy some round steel piece of tube, and I'm just going to build my own linkage. So it'll be pretty easy. It helps having a welder, man. It really does. And as long as I got MIG gas and MIG wire, I'm good. It doesn't cost me anything, because I've got all this is just scrap stuff here, and I've got stuff scattered everywhere. I got stuff behind my house. I got stuff in my fenced area. I got plates, different, that I've cut on little sections out back over there behind that engine. But this is all like sheet metal and just little stuff, scrap pieces. I have round stuff here, and then I have square stuff up here, and then I've got old pieces of quarter panels and rockers and just that type of stuff. When I do the patch panels on this car, I'm just building them all myself. I have a bead roller, I have a sheet metal brake and everything, so I'll just build it all myself. I do have to have front floor pan work. It's like mainly in the center where this car was rusty, so I'm just going to cut like a center area out, transfer it to steel, roll some beads in it for strength, and butt weld it all in, grind top and bottom. That way it looks clean. It doesn't have to look factory. I'll put beads in it for strength. But I have to patch the trans tunnel because they put a floor shifter in it. I actually have an old trans tunnel piece cut out up on top of that shelf up there, so I'll just use a piece of that. That way it already has the bend, and I don't have to hand bend it and none of that. I'll just cut it out and use it. And then this dog leg, I do plan on doing a video of this. I'm going to build this all by hand, and I'm going to finish it out in metal, and I will show it when it's done. That way I want it to look like nothing's ever been done in metal. But I've patched quite a few of these through the years. This is common on a Tri-5 4-door, but the other side's mint. This one's rusted out. But anyway, I do believe they do sell a patch panel, but I'm not spending the money. I'm just going to do it all by hand. I do it all in separate pieces and weld it all together. And I don't know. It's just, to me, it's kind of easy, so I'm just going to build it myself. But anyway, guys, that's where I'm at. Where I'm at on minutes. 14:45. Yeah, I guess that's about it. That's what I've been up to. It's It's been a mess this past week, man. Ever since I had that engine trouble, I have lost the drive to work on that car. And it happens, you know, it happens when you know, build a car and you've got years and years into it, and you get down to the finals on it, and you always have issues, but this car has just had a lot of issues. So it's always been best for me. I get frustrated and I'll move on to another car. And, you know, after you work on something else for a little bit, you kind of get your drive back. Or, well, I do. So that's what I'll end up doing. But, I mean, the gist of it is, you know, I've got to have like $1,000 or $1,500 to do an engine for this car. And I don't have the money right now. So I'm going to have to wait. So for now, to do free stuff, I'm just going to do this. So it's still the windy, rainy season. So it's not going to do any good to do any painting on this car because I've been having trouble. So I'm going to wait until, you know, it progresses in another month or so, and then I'll get back on that and do some paint work. But for now, I'm just going to do this type of stuff. I'm enjoying it. It's a change of pace for me. And I love fabricating stuff anyway. But anyway, at this point, I'm just wasting your time. So thanks for watching.